Yeah, I'd love half a box too. Cha-ching.
Cha-ching, done. You know, you're like, what in the world? And this was before everything kind of went topsy-turvy for me, but I mean, you know, I don't regret it. I know I'm looking forward to using it.
Me too. And then I picked it up on my drive home, but the problem is I still hadn't had the car repaired from being rear-ended because the insurance companies haven't finished communicating. So I can't open the back of my car. So I had to shove that giant box through the back door of my car.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Aviation RC Noob podcast. My name is Joe.
My name is Matt.
And today we are on episode 62. Multi-rotors.
No, multi-motor. Multi-rotors are not the same thing.
My bad, I misread that. Multi-motor. That's what you get for typing something that looks like another word.
Well, how about this? Is the hyphen make it better?
No.
We're going to talk about multi-motor setups today. Having more than one motor. A lot of planes, bombers specifically, had more than one motor. Some of them had four.
My quadcopter has more than one motor.
It does. It's a quadcopter too, just like all the bombers.
Okay.
I shouldn't say all the bombers. That's not fair. There's a lot of bombers that had two motors.
You mean my quad is a multi-motor, just like the bombers?
It is. That's it. That's what I'm talking about.
You said it was a quad, just like the bombers.
They're quads.
Some of them.
Some, yeah.
So some were hexes.
No.
Were they not?
I don't think they're. I'm trying to think. I don't think. Okay, I put it out to listeners. Please, no. Look, listeners, write in. Let us know if you know of any 6-motor bombers.
I've got one.
Okay, what is it?
Well, that kind of defeats the challenge you just
put then
out.
How about this? Joe says he knows stuff. Let's see if you listeners know. Write in either through Discord or an email or snail mail if you want. I don't know where you can send it, though.
You can send it to Aviation RC Noob Podcast Plaza on
at getthisintheair.com.
911 Noob Street. Write your answer on the back of a $20 bill.
Along with a list of all of the components you wish you could have with the $20.
Finally got that car talk reference.
I know, right? It's fantastic.
I know. We were talking about that bbefore we even did episode 0.
Oh, yeah. Look, we might just do a whole theme.
Okay. So I'll tell you what, we will answer that question next week. No.
In the third part of the show? In the third half of the show?
Yeah, the third half of the show. No, for real. I'll tell you what. I have found A is the first result that came up.
Okay.
I will do that as our next history segment.
And look, everybody who knows about the Hercules knows that there are 8-motor planes.
Yes, but I wasn't going for the octomotor.
Exactly.
Yeah. I will do, I've got this one sitting right here in front of me now. I'll do that for next episode's history segment. So I'll make a note to myself.
Now, and that's a prop plane? Or are they jets?
Is it? Let me look.
Because there's a lot of jets that have...
I mean, a jet is technically a motor, right?
Let's not talk about that.
Okay, it is a prop. Yep.
Okay, good. That's what I was hoping for.
Yep.
Oh, there's one. Yeah. Look at that. Okay. Well, yeah, so, the podcast here is Aviation RC Noob. We're here to help you get started, get in the air, and stay connected. So, yeah, let's see if we can talk about the benefits and drawbacks of having more than one motor on your plane. Especially some of the people have in the forums have been mentioning something about putting together a bunch of planes with more than one motor. And they just had a couple questions, thought it might be worthwhile to talk about it. And I thought that was a good plan.
Well, fortunately, Matthew is the man of the hour when it comes to having problems with multi-motors.
I'm so good at having problems with them.
But I know you're the one with the experience. I've got ever so slight, and so I can only speak to that. But you'll be the one, I'm sure, covering the most of that. But before we get into all that, as always, or as most times, but we are always grateful, we want to thank our Patreons, our patrons, for continuing to help keep the lights on, keeping the website going, and the fun things that go along with that. So if you're interested in joining our patrons, you can go over to patreon.com/aviationrcnoob. We have no minimum sign-up values. There's no special content. Well, I won't say there's no special content. There's nothing gated that is overly related. The only thing that's behind the Patreon wall at this point is just where I still have not finished uploading all the show notes for all the episodes, but our first half of the shows have their show notes uploaded. So just so you guys can have a look at that. And then we also have some build nights coming up.
Yeah, we actually just had a build night not too long ago.
That's right. I was out of town for that.
That's right. You were busy doing awesome stuff. And while you were gone, I had an awesome time spending. I don't know. I was on there for 6 hours or something like that. I just decided it's time to do my best to get this glider done. Actually, I was getting it covered. And so I went from having a plane with a lot of holes in it to having a plane with no holes in it, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, you showed me a picture of it. It looks good.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I have a motor now that has a spinner and a 16x8 prop or 16x10 prop, which is reasonably sized for that size glider. It's overpowered. It's overpowered. As a matter of fact, Jesse chimed in the one day. He goes, "What are you guys talking about? You're oversizing the prop on your glider. It's 1.5 times the power ratio you're supposed to. What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, look, it's just what I had, and I think it'll work well." And he's like, "No, it's fine." But when you went over the watts per pound and all that kind of stuff and how much thrust you're supposed to have, he's like, the glider's supposed to have like almost like 1/2 ratio, and you're looking at 1.5 What are you doing? So thank you, Jesse.
Speaking of Jesse, and thank you, Jesse. Jesse's actually in channel with us right now as we're recording.
Hey, Jesse.
Listening in. So we do still have the podcast recording channel set up so that folks can pop in while we're recording and just listen. Yeah. So anyway, we have a couple people pop in periodically.
And if you're listening to this and you joined in the previous night between 8 and 11 on the 4th, well, I want to thank you for joining us. We're doing a build night then, or we did a build night then, and we have one coming up in December on Friday the 2nd between 8 to 11 p.m.
It's the current plan.
That's the current plan. So that's the next one coming up. And Joe and I should both be there. And then, we're hoping to do maybe a bring in the New Year's or something close to that. As we just kind of celebrate the new year where we just build some planes and have a good time talking to the community. So, join us if you can for any one of those. We'd love to have you. There's a lot of great discussions about the hobby. And I love getting to see what people are putting together. Sometimes it's not aviation related, and most of the times it is though. Like one of our guys, he builds bikes. And he got to show us what he was doing with some of his bikes. That was really cool. Yeah. So you get a little bit more than you bargain for sometimes.
Sorry, you caught me mid-sip.
No, that's all right. So those are the build nights coming up. I'm trying to think, are there any other big community events or anything like that we need to mention right now?
I don't suppose so.
Okay.
I mean, I guess we could put a shout out to say, if you want to write in and let us know what, because we're trying to kind of catch this one a little earlier than we did last year. While we won't necessarily be doing like a Thanksgiving or Christmas themed episode, if you want to leave a Thanksgiving or Christmas themed comment. Feel free to leave a comment and say, around Thanksgiving time, this is what I'm thankful for, or coming up on Christmas, here's what I'd love if Santa brought me.
Yeah.
We'd be happy to read those on air.
That'd be fun. Excellent. Well,
Not that I don't imagine we have very many husbands and wives who listen. So
I don't know. Yeah, so it'll be secret.
Let us know what you want for Christmas. I'm not Santa.
And then you just tell your spouse or whoever to come and listen to this episode that we air it, and then they'll know what you need.
There we go.
That's it. Anyway, all right. So we have a bunch of community comments on the last couple episodes that I'd love to read, but I think before we do, we usually start off our episodes talking about what we've been busy doing in the last couple weeks. If you don't mind me, Joe, I'd like to just do a quick start off on that.
Go for it. Mine's pretty short.
Yep. And mine's not going to be terribly long. About 2 weeks ago, as of the recording of this thing, we're recording a little bit before Halloween. I had resigned from my position at my current company, so I'm in between jobs. And what I always forget, I always think, oh, it's going to be great. I'll have all this time to do these things that I've been waiting to do. What I keep forgetting is that finding a new job is a full-time job and then some. So, so really taking that time on the build night last time was really the first time and the only time since pretty much that I've built anything. So my progress was getting the gliders, getting the film on, and getting it taut, and it's looking really good. So at this point, I'm looking to mount a motor and connect electronics and figure out how I'm going to fasten the wing down specifically. But just a couple little last items, and I should have it up in the air. I'm hoping really soon. As we hit the part where we're about to scoot back an hour, I think that was a fallback, right? So we're going to go back. Hopefully giving us a little bit more daylight before all of it goes away for the whole winter. And which I'll tell you what, will make me very glad to have those lights in there. And I spent all that time on it. So anyway, so I'm hoping that next time we talk to everybody that I'll have a success story of it being in the air. Other than that, I've got, I made a full side, like a 60-inch, I think, Puri. So 5.5 foot Puri, which is like a flying wing that looks kind of like two, what are those helicopter things from the maple trees? It looks like if you were to glue those two together, that's kind of what the shape of the wing looks like, the flying wing. So I got one of those going. And, that was the other thing I did. While I have, we talked about the uproar, and I had put the designs on the paper. Well, I decided to cut them out at the end of the build night. So I have them cut out, and I'm looking to put them together. So that's kind of that was the other thing that I kind of did. And then, working a little bit here and there on some of the planning stuff behind the website. And that's kind of what we've been doing. For me, that's what I've been doing in the hobby. I'm hoping that I can kind of wrap up a lot of the job search stuff. As we all always, when you're in between, always trying to do it quickly. But I'm hoping that I can find the next position so I can, stop doing that and start focusing back on the hobby and kind of getting back in it. I know Kilroy07, Tim, and I had kind of put like a little, by the end of the month, good luck getting a big manta ray flyer up. And I thought I'd have plenty of time. And turns out I didn't. So I'm still going to work on that project probably this coming month. So think of November as the giant manta ray month. Building a big wing there. So anyway, so that's what I'm working on and what I hope to be working on in this coming month. I think any more than that would be ambitious. What about you, Joe? What have you been up to? I know you've been doing some things.
Talking to you a fair bit.
Yeah, man. I appreciate that. By the way, appreciate the support.
No, it's been good. Yeah, when you told me, I hated it.
Yeah,
but you're right in that it's a full-time job, and I think if everything you've told me is accurate, you're going at it harder and better than I did when I was in that situation. So,
well, thanks.
Yeah. So yeah. But as far as hobby stuff goes, We're actually recording a week earlier than we normally would. So the last episode just went up. We're a few days past that. So there's not... yeah. Anyway. So one weekend, so the first weekend I had LARP that weekend. And then this past weekend, I'm trying to remember what I did this last weekend. It wasn't much.
I don't know. Well, you went up to your cousin's eagle ceremony, which was awesome.
That's what it was.
Yeah, we got a chance to get together physically and see each other. Now, we had ordered Depron that came in. Like
nobody knows about that.
Lickety. Okay, then I didn't order any Depron, like a whole case, and give half of it to you when you came up then. It didn't happen.
And I totally didn't twist your arm. No, I really did not twist your arm into buying it.
You just said, hey, it would be cool. I'm looking at this plane and having a big, I don't need a whole box of Depron, but like, it'd be cool to have like the big sheets and like maybe half a box. And I'm like, sold. Okay, it's already in the thing. It's already on its way. And you're like, what?
Man, you were like, yeah, I'd love half a box too. Cha-ching.
Cha-ching, done. You know, you're like, what in the world? And this was before everything kind of went topsy-turvy for me. But I mean, I don't regret it. I know I'm looking forward to using it.
Me too. And then I picked it up on my drive home, but the problem is I still hadn't had the car repaired from being rear-ended because the insurance companies haven't finished communicating. So I can't open the back of my car. So I had to shove that giant box through the back door of my car.
I had no idea. Oh my God.
I had to kick the passenger out of the front passenger seat so I could kind of wedge it into his seat and then twist it. It was a nightmare to get that into the car.
I wish I was there to see it.
I'm just going to say, I'm glad Depron doesn't have paper glued to the face of it.
I know, right?
If it was regular foam board, it'd been all jacked up.
Yeah, oh my God. Thank you, Joe. Yeah, I had no idea.
Your neighbors had to have been looking like, what is this guy doing?
Man, they've seen weirder things out of me. They're just like, that guy. I don't know.
So, yeah. I may have no, I haven't mentioned it because the last episode is when it hit me. So, during last episode, John Woodfield.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. I apologize, John. John Woodfield mentioned in passing Jetworks RC.
Right.
And
he said he's got some buddies who put together some pretty good foam planes. And who's referring to the Depron guys, those guys you just mentioned. Mm-hmm. And so we both kind of hopped on it real quick and just said, oh, cool. And Joe said more than, he said more than, oh, cool. He went, oh.
Yeah, for whatever reason, it hit me, the bug. So,
So which one were you looking at?
The F-16.
Oh, yeah.
The Fighting Falcon, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
And then if it works the way I think it is, one sheet of Depron will take care of the F-16, which means I have 9 more sheets.
Which means you'll build 9 more of them. I mean, come on. I'm just kidding.
I don't need 10 F-16s. No. I could do with a F-22.
Yeah.
Possibly a 35. Maybe a B-2.
Well,
Go stupid with it.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, we'll get you started.
Yeah.
That'll be awesome.
So, I go to Jetworks RC, have a look. They've got some good looking stuff. They're not sponsoring us. Nope. You can buy the plans, similar to how we get our FT plans, and you can print them out or you can tile them, cut your parts out of Depron. We've talked to the Depron guys, so you know where to get you know where to get the Depron from.
Hi, Greg.
Yep. And then they also sell the STL files for the 3D printed parts that you'll need to finish that up, and the STL files are cheap. So
yeah, it's reason it's like $6 for all the ones you need, or something close to that.
Yeah, I think plans and STL files, I was all in like $25.
Yeah, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that. I'm in.
Yeah.
All right, dude.
Yep. So I'm going to get an EDF and that stuff. But
was it take
also,
what size was it? 70 millimeter, 170 millimeter?
Or? No, I think this one was sized for the 50 and 60.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I have to double check.
Yeah, well, there's a couple good 50 millimeters out there you should get if you're getting one. So cool, very good.
Yeah, so that's going to be a timed a project I want to take some time with, because that one will take some sculpting and carving and filling and sanding, and I would want to paint that one nice. So yeah. Anyway, other things I've been doing, not spending too much time on that. A while back I was looking at I may have mentioned in a previous episode, but I was looking at the CR Touch auto bed level from a 3D printer.
Yep.
And my wife just went ahead and checked out with that basket. So that came in. Got that put on my 3D printer, went to upgrade the firmware, and proceeded to immediately mess up my 3D printer.
Congratulations.
Yeah. The servo, the stepping motors wouldn't move. They just hum. So I couldn't do anything with it. So, long story short on that one, I basically had to look up a YouTube tutorial on the Merlin, which I guess is the open source firmware for it.
Yeah, the Marlin, I think.
Yeah, Marlin. And how to compile that with the CR Touch. So I had to build my own firmware, from downloaded code and going in and adjusting the code to enable the CR Touch, and then actually export the firmware and flash it that way. So I know you had a 3D printer that was having some trouble. So we'll link up sometime and I'll be able to do the code for yours as well.
That'll be really cool. It's one of those ones where everybody says that when they updated the firmware on that specific model, that things started working way better in a bunch of different ways. So it was one of those things. I had probably about an hour and a half to deal with it, and I couldn't finish it in that time. And then, at that point, I just got frustrated with so many other things, and I came back around to say, you know what? Why don't I just buy this other brand that's been, everybody's touts is working well, which I have to agree with. I've had a lot of success, but I want to go back to that first one that I bought because it should work really well. I think part of the problems I was having with it was that I had something in the spool for probably 6 months. So it had gotten all sorts of moisture in the filament, and it was sputtering and cracking, and it was brittle, and I really should have replaced the filament is what I should have done and gave it another go and then tried it anyway. So,
well, when you go to do that, because I know you were also having some bed adhesion issues and things like that. Jesse sold me on, I guess, the magnetic build plate.
Oh, yeah.
And they're cheap. It was like $11, and it's got this magnetic surface that you sticker onto the build bed.
Yeah.
And then the build plate is this flexible magnetic that magnetizes onto that.
Right.
And when I'm done printing, I take that off, and the bed, like that build pad flexes. So I'm not going in there with a scraper, scratching and I just bend the build plate, and the part goes,
and it
boop,
pops off. Yeah.
And it's right there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good solution to that problem. Yeah, it's definitely pretty cool. I'm glad that you have one. I always find like you start looking at all the accessories and you're like, oh my God, I could spend as much on the for accessories as I did on the printer. And I feel like at that point I'm defeating the value of the 3D printer. So that's, at that point it's like, well, why don't I just buy a new one that has all that stuff? Which is what I ended up doing for mine. But things like that, like either a glass plate build plate where you have the super flat plate, or the other one. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, and I can see where the super flat plate, like the glass surface, could be desirable. So I have resumed printing some of the Model B parts.
Okay.
Although I started experiencing that stringy issue again because I was reverting to the original profile I had built for it, which was using their original settings. So I think I said I had backed the temperature off to 205 and increased retraction distance and speed. So I just got to go in and update those and continue. They're not like critical parts, and it was only a couple, so I'll just clean the stringing up and not worry about reprinting.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on how critical the look is at the end. I'm imagining this first go is like, let's see if I can print one to make it fly. Yeah. Which may be not successful, in which case you would have spent all that extra time cleaning it up only to just have a tank in the dirt, maybe, which I hope it doesn't. I really hope it flies for a while before you have before you have too much fun and get it into the dirt.
Well, after I finished printing the Model B, I've also got a glider from them, and by them I mean Eclipson.
Okay.
So I've got the glider plans, but yeah, I gotta finish the Model B. So now that it's up and running and the auto bed leveler's going, I got an extra roll of filament to go into it. I'm, looking to just go ahead and I had to spend an evening and get all the what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah.
The G-code files all crunched out for here's all the parts that I need to make in order, and here's the ones I've already made, and then just go ahead and start cranking them out. And it'll take me probably another 5 days of printing to get them all done.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Once I, sit down to do it.
Okay, good. Huh.
Okay. And that's about it. Other than my wife did also order, and I missed it completely at the time, the 2 batteries for my Phantom 3 Pro.
Oh, yeah.
That I wanted to get, and I didn't realize she had ordered.
Well, one of the advantages of having stuff in your cart by accident.
Yeah. Well, she knew she was ordering it.
No, but I mean, you had it in there for like, this would be nice someday, and she didn't know like it was this would be nice someday.
No, she did. We'd had the conversation where I was saying, "Hey, I'd like to order. I'm thinking about making this order." And she said, maybe you should hold off. And then suddenly they showed up. So,
okay.
That was nice.
Well, yeah, that's very nice. Well, your wife's awesome. What do you want?
I lucked out pretty good.
Yeah, I know.
I definitely don't deserve her.
I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, okay. So is there anything else that you've been working on with the hobby? I mean, that's pretty full. I mean, for doing stuff in the free time.
Yeah, for not having a ton of it.
Right, exactly. All right. Well, with that, I guess we might as well continue on with community comments.
Yep, and then we can get into the main stuff.
And then we can get into the history. You said you had a little bit of history. I've got a little bit of news, and then we'll get on to the main topic. So, all right. So Duncan on the 21st said, I just completed this one really touched my heart when I read it. It said, yeah, I've just completed the backlog, shows 1 through 60 mostly in order. I only started in late August, so that's almost a show a day. I'd like to say a giant thank you to you, to Foamy DM and Joe. So Matt and Joe, the noob, I guess. And the learning curve has been steep. There's been loads more for me to discover, but your show has been invaluable as a fully immersive introduction to the hobby. And I think Joe and I both replied, it's really probably the biggest, one of the best ringing endorsements that I think I've heard. And it just makes us feel like that what we're doing here is making an impact.
Well, so he sent that message, and I saw it come in on Discord because I was driving to work, and I think I was just pulling out of the driveway when it came in. And I sat there driving down the road thinking, how do I respond to that? And then I think I was at a stoplight or something, and I glanced down to, try to finagle a couple words, like maybe try to put something together. And I saw you were responding, and I said, oh, Matt will have some. And then I called you afterwards. We talked about it, but that was really nice to hear. Thank you, Duncan.
Yeah, thank you. Yankee 2003, a couple days later, sent something in the show notes that said, as my Bronco approaches completion, I'm about to fly my first aircraft. I think it's first twin aircraft is what he meant to say. I was wondering if you guys have covered building, flying your first twin aircraft, differential thrust, no differential thrust, advantages and disadvantages of twin engine aircraft. I'd also like to know what the experiences and thoughts that Joe had with the Sea Duck, which is essentially what this, what inspired this episode. I want to thank you, Mike, for putting that comment in there. And we did cover a little bit of differential thrust and things like that when we talked about setting up transmitters and talking about motors, and it's been piecemeal throughout multiple different episodes in the past. But I thought it's a good comment. I think I also noticed there were a number of people who were building multi-engine airplanes, so it wouldn't be a bad idea to kind of talk about that. So thank you, Mike, for inspiring this episode. Richard, Spitfire 76, said he enjoyed listening to John Woodfield, the John Woodfield last episode, episode 61, as your special guest on episode 61. And it wasn't because he was a fellow Brit. Slope soaring is an area of the hobby that I have yet to experience, but appreciate the attraction of RC flying, relying on nature rather than motor or prop. Or motor and prop. I guess it must be similar to sailing on water, which was wonderful. I thought that was a good sum up. Part of I think what the attraction to slope soaring is to me is like, okay, let's get rid of most of the electronic junk and really just keep it to the bare minimum, like a minimalist RC hobby. And then let's see, a day later than that, Duncan replied or put in here. He said, yeah, the episode was really good. He's referring to the episode 61. Is he, as in John Woodfield, makes it look so effortless and graceful in his videos. But it's hard to tell how much of that is in the edit, and it sounds like it's not much. He lives just down the road from my parents, so next time I'm down there, I'll have to go see the flying site. And sadly, that's miles away. Yeah, right? I'm like, what? Go visit your parents. Jealous. Hurry up.
Yeah, what are you waiting on?
Yeah, you don't have to go down like across a whole ocean. I mean, come on. You could do it. Tell us what it's about. Anyway, so he continues. It says, sadly, that's miles away from where I live. So I'm not going to be able to fly there. One minor thing, on my download, there's a little glitch about 1 hour and 20 minutes in where the sounds was kind of overlaid for a bit. It's about a minute and a half. And he says, I don't know what that is, if that's there in all of the episode or if it's just your setup. And the answer is, and I thanked him for pointing that out for us. Sometimes we go through this episode, and I think I was pulling one of the cutout segments, either to be in the beginning to kind of entice you in, or at the end. And I guess it dropped a copy there, and I didn't see it. So we've since pulled it out, and we're in the process of uploading the corrected audio. So I want to thank Duncan for that. That's a big help. So having extra ears
is. That export is now done.
Okay, good.
You did the edit. Thank you. I just had to render it on my end, and so
good. Perfect.
It's done. It'll actually be uploaded here in a few minutes.
Yeah. So we apologize to anybody who had listened to it and went, "Oh, what the heck is going on there?" We missed it, and I apologize. But we got it fixed up, and hopefully future listeners won't have to hear that. And I thank you for pointing that out because I don't think we would have caught it otherwise. So thanks.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, so I guess that's it for there's a lot of comments. Honestly, we have a great community, and I want to thank our community again for helping it be so easy to maintain and keep as a positive, family-friendly atmosphere. And so all of you guys who keep sharing your builds and your experiences and your efforts and help kind of building a community that people want to stay in to help them keep in the hobby. I really appreciate it. It makes all the world of difference to me and some of the new kids that we see come in and have all these questions, and it's great. So thank you. So a little bit of news. The FAA, it was something that I saw one of our good buddies, Bushhawk RC. I think he posted the FAA news, the first FAA approved RID module, remote ID module. And we'll have a link to a YouTube video, and it looks like, it's like Drone Tag, I think is a company. I'm not really sure. It looks like they're maybe Czechoslovakia or I don't know. But it looks like it'll be $299 or 299 euro. Yep. As predicted. Remember we talked about it and I said it might be upwards of $200, no $50 thing like they kind of predicted way in the beginning. But
yeah, you're right.
Yep. I figured it'd be a chunk of tech. You have to, it's like something you have a clip on you. You have to, a piece you put on the drone. The piece is relatively light and somewhat small. I would have to say it's the size of maybe a 500 size battery.
Okay.
Maybe. Just looking at, I was trying to get dimensions and I couldn't find them. But they're there. So it's available and I'm sure we'll see more to come. Hopefully they'll be able to kind of pull some of that price down a little bit. I don't know how much they'll be able to pull. So, but that is news on that front.
Well, as a couple more manufacturers get into the game, and like anything, the first couple are expensive, and then
always
as supply can catch up, because right now there's just going to be an absolute stupid amount of demand for it.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, those who want to comply are going to. That's a lot of people, I'm sure. And as long as there's a solution for it, they're going to want to take part. And so one of the advantages of, as much as it stinks that it's $300, as a recreational flyer, you only need to have one.
Yep.
So it's basically you purchase it once, kind of like buying a transmitter. You buy one and you don't have to worry about it for a long while. Just don't crash or lose that model. Although...
Yeah, go ahead, because you said it earlier.
Although, when I was looking through the video... it looks like the app that you have to download and kind of helps it track and whatever, you have the full flight path of where you were at and superimposed over an overlay of like a Google Maps kind of picture overlay. You can find out exactly where your drone went down. So you should be able to find it pretty quickly. Cross the fingers. Hope that works exactly like you think. But you should have a pretty good record on your phone with you on your person. So you should be able to go out and retrieve it relatively simply. I'll let you know when I lose my first one, how that goes.
It won't take long.
I'll tell you what, look. Oh, so that was one of the things I did. I forgot. I made my Wonder. I took the Wonder, right? The Wonder Bread Wonder. And I flew it. I gave it its maiden flight and it flew out of my hands and flew around and it went really well. I had a little bit of trimming to do, and I wasn't going to test it too hard. But one of the things I forgot to do when I was building it was put a little bit of Velcro inside the battery compartment. So I said to myself, "This is
not the first time."
No, this is not the first time. So then, look, this is me never learning because I'm eager to get out and fly. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just pack it with like paper and stuff and like friction fit it in there. Well, I flew
again, not the first time.
Not the first time. No, again, because it worked so well the previous times.
Right? Maybe if I just pack it a little harder.
Oh my God. Anyway, so I got out there and I did a couple gentle loops and some little bit of maneuvers, nothing crazy, just kind of getting the feel for it. And it felt really good. The controls weren't very touchy. I'm sure I could make them a little bit more so, but one of the things, there's very small surfaces. So it's not going to be like crazy agile. I mean, unless you really pump up the throws. But it's a good flyer. It's easy to fly around, and it's not going to do anything too terribly unpredictable. As I was at the end of the field, I ended up doing kind of pulling up for a loop. And while I did that, the battery exhibited, what is that? Newton's first law of motion. Things in motion tend to stay in motion and the same trajectory so the battery kept going upwards and out while the plane continued on the loop until the battery ejected and yoinked the power out of the thing. And so then it basically continued on that loop and made its way to the ground. The battery ejected. I didn't see it. So I only learned after the fact that I'm like, well, based on what was happening, I'm like, okay, the battery's out. But I didn't see where it went. I couldn't see it on the video because the video camera was facing the opposite direction, which means I have no idea where the battery went. It literally just fell into the dirt and it's covered up and I have no idea where it is. So I lost the battery, which is really disappointing. But I did fly it. It flew great. I'm excited to get it back in the air. But I realized that day that even though I probably could have repacked put the other battery in there and repacked it with stuff, that was probably not a smart choice. So I went home and I haven't dug out the other half of my Velcro. to put it in the model yet. But anyway, just know that you'll probably hear me talk more about now this is Spons's not Bloody Wonder, but it's his standard Wonder design. Made out of foam board, and it's fantastic. So thanks, Spons, for putting that together. Maybe one of these days we'll see if we can have him come join us and talk about that as we get a little bit further.
Speaking of Spawns and the Wonder.
Yes.
We were talking last time about what our Flight Fest 23 fly-in plane, essentially, what community build we wanted to do as like a gaggle, or there's different terms that people are using
flight
at this point.
Or
yeah, like where we did the Spitfire fly-in this last year, what were we going to do this coming year?
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a couple ideas presented. The crowd favorite at the moment does appear to be the Wonder.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a very generous offer by Spawns that if we do the Wonder, then he'll figure out some sort of special variant of the Wonder to do specifically for that.
To release,
so it's something to look forward to there. But if the Wonder is not what those who are going to Flight Fest 23 are, that's not your vote, come into the Discord and let us know. Give us your thoughts. We've got a channel for it now. Let us know, because if there's any other thoughts, we want to give them. But I think by next episode, we're pretty much going to lock this down, because there's a lot of support for it, and people are starting to get, kind of excited.
Yeah.
And I felt kind of bad felt kind of rude to Spawns, because people were getting excited, and I meant to just tap the brakes, and apparently I slammed the emergency brake on that conversation.
And that's the thing is, the way I read it, I just heard you just saying, hey, this isn't set yet. Just, let's not go too far down this road until we've heard a bunch of give it some time to ruminate and have people who have other ideas join in too. Because not everybody's seen this, but we appreciate the enthusiasm. We're excited to see where this takes us. And it was just like, oh, I guess you guys don't like it. No, not that we don't like it. We do like it. Actually, we're excited about it. I'm really excited about how much enthusiasm everybody had. But again, there's other planes out there, and maybe somebody comes up with something that's like, oh, I want to do it. And everybody's like, oh, that is a great idea.
Yeah, and everybody and their brother's like, you know what? Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you got an idea, get it in. I'll say at this point, just because so much excitement, I guess, has been about it, this episode is going to go up on the 5th.
Mm-hmm.
If we stay on this schedule, we'll be recording again on the 8th.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's not how we normally we do it in just-in-time recording. And we're trying to avoid that a little bit. So we're trying to get a little bit more proactive. But
tell you what, you got until Saturday the 12th of November to cast your vote.
There you go.
If you've got an opinion, that gives folks a week after this episode goes up.
Yeah, but let us know.
Cutoff.
Whatever fun idea, and again, even if it's like, hey, here's this balsa plane. I think if we could find a way to make it foam board, and I know a guy. I'm looking at myself, and I'm also looking at Dan. That are we're good at we're not the only people in our community that are good at taking ideas and turning them into simple foam board planes that other people might be able to enjoy. And I that's the kind of challenge I love. So if you've got ideas that you're like, well, I'd love to see this as foam board, and everybody's like, yeah, if we could make that foam board, I'd be in. Let's talk about that. But in the meantime, right now that's the Forerunner. Take a look at it. If you have an idea as to what a noob Wonder might look like, we're up for ideas. Joe and I have a couple, but we'd love to see if other people have different ideas too, and we'll go from there. So, looking forward to it. You have some aviation history. Is that true, Joe?
I do, just a little bit, which is fine because it always seems like the history segment goes on longer than I think it does. But then the first half of this episode has gone on longer than I thought it would, so What is going on my computer screen right now?
I don't know.
Oh, I see what happened. Never mind.
Well, stop pressing the buttons.
Well, no. So, okay, real quick. My graphics card can support multiple monitors. So I've got a 3-screen setup. And it is possible for my graphics card to virtualize these 3 monitors as one not just it extends the desktop, but it will treat all 3 as a single monitor.
Okay, yeah.
And so applications can spread across them. And I thought because of the way that my web browsers are on both screens, that somehow it was treating 2 of my screens as one and the other one as its own. It was weird. Anyway.
Okay.
Unrelated. So, aviation history. Brief on this, and then I'll give a caveat at the end. Do you know a fella by the name of Sir George Cayley?
Mm-mm. Should I?
No.
You're like, no, but I want to talk about a different guy.
Yeah, actually, the real star of this show is going to be his, was it his, carriageman?
Okay, what era are we talking about?
So, this guy, Sir George Cayley, was born 1773.
Whoa.
Yeah, what the heck, Joe? What are we doing back there? Born 1773, died 1854.
How do you spell Cayley?
Charlie Alpha Yankee Lima Echo Yankee.
Okay.
He was an English pioneer of aerial navigation and aeronautical engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And is claimed with the first successful glider to carry a human being aloft.
Nice.
So since that we've done a couple glider episodes, thought it might be appropriate to look into glider history.
Excellent.
That said, there's only so much on this.
Well, I mean, it's from, it feels like antiquity. I know it's not antiquity. That's not really fair.
Well, so there are other people who continued his work. And read about him and studied him. So it sounds like there might be more out there.
Yeah.
But also I had coworkers in town for the last week and we had a department fun day yesterday.
That's
so
no excuse.
I didn't do any
Fun
research.
should never get in the way of this.
But we went axe throwing and stuff. So.
Yeah.
Apparently he was fascinated with flight since childhood. He conducted a variety of tests and experiments. I believe he is attributed with coming up with the idea or the forces of flight, that is thrust, drag, weight, and lift. He was the one that, if I'm remembering correctly, sort of defined those and began looking into how they impacted the plane or the idea of flight. And then specifically within that then was the idea of powered flight. So the idea perhaps was there because, again, he's talking thrust, just they hadn't pulled it off yet.
Go ahead.
I was going to say his most important discoveries included the advantages of streamlining the means of obtaining longitudinal and lateral stability.
Okay.
Elements of wing design, thoughts on biplane and multi-wing, the use of rudders and elevators for control. He designed a variety of aircraft, including helicopters, airships, and fixed-wing machines, which is weird.
Wow.
He's attributed with establishing the modern configuration of the fixed-wing flying aircraft with separate systems for lift, propulsion, and control as early as 1799. It says, see the silver disc machine. I did not see that link earlier, or I'd have clicked it, so I'll have to have a look at that after we finish up everything.
I think No, that's an aerial carriage. It's a little different, although it might be the same.
See, now you got me clicking on it.
Okay, I'm going to also put a link here to what I found, which was just an article on him. And I'm going to, but we can talk about one of his earlier flight stories, I guess, that I posted an image here. It's basically like almost like a kite, like a somewhat controllable kite. Apparently, that was one of his first successes.
Okay.
Anyway, go ahead. Keep on.
It says in 1804 he flew the first successful glider model of which there is any record, and 1853 the completion of a full-scale glider that carried quote his reluctant coachman on the first manned glider flight on record.
Yes.
So I guess he said, "Hey, get in there."
Yeah. So it's this the image I have here, and it said according to the count of his granddaughter, the somewhat reluctant passenger was a coachman, John Appleby, and he basically took his place in this little boat-like carriage slung underneath this what looks like a big kite wing. The glider was launched and then drawn by galloping horses, or at least a galloping horse, and in flight.
Oh, okay.
That probably only took seconds. Yet must have felt like hours to the poor terrified coachman. The machine flew 900 feet across the valley, and it was first recorded. There was the first recorded flight of a fixed wing aircraft carrying an adult.
And the original material I saw on that said that if glided across the valley and then crashed. So I hope he's okay. Or that
right. Hope he survived it. Right?
Was okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean that's history. That's big history. So people have been trying to fly for a long, long time.
Right. So, in reading this, this work inspired others who came after, Otto Lilienthal of Germany. Kind of following those steps. Octave Chanute, the Wright brothers would draw inspiration off of him. So
yeah, remember, I mean, they built and flew many gliders before they even thought about trying to motorize it and put controls in it.
Right. And really a lot of the issues. So during this guy's time, he was already, during this guy's and like the next generation behind him, they were figuring out the wing designs, and they were already dealing with the undercambered wings at that point.
Right.
And seeing the amount of lift that it generated. So they were already playing with the wing styles, and they were playing with the control surfaces and how to steer the planes and do the thing, and the advantages and disadvantages of each. So a lot of this was, being built upon, and it's just sort of like the perfect everything coming together. Not taking away from the Wright brothers, but no, growing up, it was definitely this idea that the Wright brothers just came out of nowhere and invented a plane.
Planes had been around for now clearly 100 years, right, or more. So
yeah, well, at least the idea and the work on them. So definitely. Anyway. So my original plan was to next episode continue glider history and go into the next, if you will, generation behind Kaylee. Yeah. But given that I'll be doing the one of the 6-motor bombers next episode, we will continue this conversation in 2 episodes.
Sounds good. I love it.
You already know what's coming for the next 2 episodes.
Cool. Yeah, excellent. I'm looking forward to it. Great.
Which also means you're off the hook for the next month and a half.
Somewhat.
Yeah.
I still gotta do stuff and build stuff and continue my excitement.
As the history segment goes.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Remember, I'm catching up.
Look, I'll tell you what. I keep urging you to join in and do those because every time you come up with something, I'm like, dude, that was great. I wouldn't have gone that direction at all. That's awesome. So I'm excited that you came up with this one, and I'm looking forward to the next couple. So great. If there's anything you need help with, by all means, let me know. But clearly, you got this taken care of.
Well, you know the secret to that recipe, right?
You don't have to give away the secret sauce. Not yet.
Desperation.
It is the mother of invention, is it not?
I don't know what to talk about. Quick, Google, save me.
Yeah, well, no, good work.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, multi-motors, talk to me.
Yeah, so let's talk about one of the, I guess, why would you choose two motors, right? Why would you want two motors on a plane? So you basically essentially have either, there's a couple ways to set them up, like you have two or more, but we'll talk about two, and then you can extrapolate this out to however many motors you have. And I've seen a guy put together the Spruce Goose, which has 8 motors, and he had 8 individual power pods with 8 batteries, and so 8 complete power setups in each pod, like each nacelle. So that's one way to call this a solution. So you can set up 2 motors. Usually you want 2 motors because it's a scale model, and a lot of planes had twin motors. And there's a reason why you have those, right? Either you need extra speed or extra speed. And usually it gives you the extra thrust to give you extra lift. And for the mission of a plane, that might be what you need to get you into the mission parameters that you need, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, remember I believe it was P-38 Lightning. That was the reason it was a dual motor craft.
Yeah, it needed extra speed to be able to compete with some of the competing aircraft that it was against. And so that's it. So you need extra thrust, or you need extra lift, or you need extra speed that goes with that thrust. One of the other advantages of having, and these are the pros, and we'll talk about the cons in a minute, is that you'll have counter rotating. So basically they will be going in opposite directions. And the benefit of that is you have in a single engine plane is that you'll have a gyroscopic precession, which essentially pulls a force 90 degrees to the disk of rotation, which ends up being basically a left yawing force for a single action or a single engine. So when you spin it the other way, on the other side, they actually the yawing forces cancel each other out, and actually has no yawing tendencies at all, which can be, that actually makes the flight characteristics of the plane a little bit simpler and easier. It also allows for scale operations. So basically, if you're trying to make a scale plane and had 2 engines, obviously you can make it so that one engine is active and the other one is essentially a dummy, where you basically have a spinner that it's not connected to anything. It's just a shaft with a motor attached, essentially. And you could do it that way if you wanted, because then it looked like there's 2. But I mean, really, what you want is try to get the extra thrust in there. One of the things that's nice about having 2 thrusts is that you have a yaw control through the difference in thrust values. So you can actually control how much thrust goes into each motor, so that you can actually have a controlled yawing action that way without having any rudder. As a matter of fact, I've built some planes where I didn't have a rudder at all, and I didn't put a rudder control in. But what I did was I had 2 motors, and that was my yaw control. So let's see. Another thing is that you can actually, for increased yaw control for planes that might be sluggish in yaw, you can use thrust, the difference in, we call it differential thrust, but basically the difference in the thrust values to couple alongside the actual rudder value. So basically you turn the rudder and it also increases or decreases, or a combination of the speed of each of the motors, right? And we'll talk about that in more detail in a second. You can also, one of the benefits of having 2 motors is that you can then set up your motor to have a little bit more complexity for different flight characteristics, where you can have a switch where the 0 setup or the default setup is it's a slave scenario where basically both motors run up with whatever the throttle value is. They're both tied to the throttle. And then you can kind of do, the second stage would be it's tied to the rudder, but only gently, right? So you have a little yaw boost kind of with that, or you could basically pop it to full tilt, and then you've got basically a big flat spin monster, and you just kick it over to one side or the other with the rudder, and you have one thrust literally, especially even if you have a reversing ESC, you can literally turn that motor backwards and produce negative thrust on one and positive thrust on the other, and really get that guy spinning. You have a centrifuge up there. But I mean, most of the time you don't need that.
Your mix curve would have to be so
ridiculous.
Steep,
it'd be so ridiculous.
Okay.
Anyway, but most of the time you basically, what you do is you almost cut the throttle on one engine and you only have the throttle on the other. Coupled with the rudder, you're going to have serious spin. So you basically spin it in the air like a pancake or like a pizza. And then you can also, by having two motors, you can use more efficient motors because you don't need to, pin the thrust value on one motor to make it fly the way you want. You can actually ease back on the two motors. You can actually have smaller motors, maybe have smaller propellers, and you can have maybe a more efficient design than having one. I think that's oftentimes why they were selected. The reason why you had multiple motors on some of the bombers was because it was more efficient to have more than one motor than it was to have one big giant motor and one big giant prop. But with these comes some cons, right? Some bad tendencies that you may not want. One, with more motors comes extra weight, especially if you're having a separate battery for every motor setup. Now, what you can also do is you can also have a parallel running from the battery so that the one battery is powering both motors. So that'll add some complexity. You'll also, though, have twice the battery draw as you would for one motor, probably, assuming that they both draw about the same as they would with two motors as they would from one. Even if they didn't, typically you end up having a little bit more energy draw out of the two motors. You also have to worry about motor syncing. So if each motor ESC is not reading the throttle value limits, when your transmitter sends the throttle value, if they're not set at the same values, you're going to have different speeds, and it'll never fly straight, not easily. You'll have to do a lot of crazy trimming. So it's really important that you have your motors all synced, and I think that's the issue that I had with my Hercules, or with my why am I blanking on it now?
The Spruce Goose?
Yeah, the Spruce Gosling, because it's little. It's only 6 feet.
I mean, I thought you paired those and synced them in all like multiple times.
I did. Doesn't necessarily mean that it worked out. Again, something was off with them. We'll get into that later, maybe. Because that is still the conundrum. It certainly, this episode makes me want to go back and just check it again. Again, if I get to a spot where I'm not worrying about full-time worrying about a job, I will probably pull that out and see what I can do one day. And I hope that day's coming pretty quick, so that'll be good. Let's see. It's a more complex setup, right? Instead of dealing with one motor, one battery, one set of connection failure points, right? You now have two. You have twice as many. And anything could happen. Maybe there's another soldering joint that's another option, another possible spot where maybe there's bad soldering that could cause an issue. So that's one of the concerns. It also takes up an additional channel on your receiver. So if you've got a 6-channel receiver and you have gears and you have flaps, oh no, I'm out. I'm out of stuff now. So if you're not Y connecting, where basically your throttle channel sends out signal to the same ESCs, or to each of the ESCs, the same signal. That's what you're going to end up having is that you need to have a separate channel if you want to do differential thrust, because they have to get different values based on your inputs from the transmitter.
Okay.
Otherwise you only have one throttle control that controls both. So you don't have to have one extra channel, but typically if you're going to do any differential or any mixing of any sort, you're probably going to need an extra channel. Also, it's twice the components, so that's twice the cost for the power systems. It's a lot more to keep track of. So some people are like, well, I could have 2 planes running for the for the setup I've got on this twin engine. It's like, I'd rather have 2 planes. So that's one of the things you might be giving up, especially if your power pod quantity is limited. You might be like, well, they also need to be matched. You really can't pull two different motors together and hope to get the same values of thrust and all that stuff out of the system. So that's one of the other drawbacks, is that they have to be identical or close to it. You know, so there are things to consider, right? Let's see. So, let's see. We want to talk about. So one of the ways to how do you get this is one of the ways you can do it if you're just doing straight just one throttle controlling two motor setups. You're going to want to either do a Y harness from your throttle channel, or you slave the second motor that's on a different channel in your controller to either the throttle channel or the throttle stick value. And you basically hook them up to the same input that you're getting. So that way they're sending the same value from your transmitter to each of the ESCs.
Okay.
Let's see. And with any of that stuff, you want to make sure that the ESCs are reading that throttle value limits identically. So the way to do that, and I'll cover that now. We covered it in the ESC episode, and I think we covered it in maybe the motor setup episode because it becomes important. I know we talked way back when we were talking about the Spruce Gosling, because we did, I don't know what episode that was, but if you go back and find that episode, we definitely cover this and how we did it. But let's cover it again, because if you are about to embark in a multi-motor plane setup, you're going to want to know how to do this. We'll send you a link. This is to Motion RC. This is just general ESC calibration, but basically you power up your system, you have your battery connected, you have your receiver connected, your transmitter is on and powered. And so everything's kind of connected and reading. So basically, you know that your transmitter's signal is getting into the plane and motor setup. Then you take the power off, you disconnect the battery, you make sure the plane is braced just in case, or more importantly, you take the props off. But I always like to brace it just in case something goes. I don't know, like maybe I got silly and decided to put them on and I forgot about it, and I start plugging in batteries and the bird starts taking off. You always want to have it facing away from you and away from people. If for some reason you are having a prop on it, just be careful and be aware that these things spin. They're basically spinning knives, so they could hurt. All right, that said, place the bird facing away from you. Then you set the transmitter. You unplug the battery, like I said. You set the transmitter throttle up to 100%. And what that does is because the next step is to plug the battery back in. What that does is when you plug it in and the throttle is at 100% in almost every ESC programming setup, as I know it, is it tells the transmitter that you want to get into the setup menu. Okay. And so I will make the asterisk of consult your ESC manual and your transmitter manual for all the exact setups for this stuff. But generally speaking, I have yet to see it be different. So you have the throttle to 100%. You plug the battery in. Then you'll hear the ESC do its normal beep tones, but it will not go all the way. It'll just basically confirm that it's receiving power and that maybe the RX is being received, but it will not do its normal, it will not go anything past that. You'll be at least missing the last two beeps at the end. The boo beep. So what it'll end up doing is actually elicit like a constant beeping tone. That's just like beep, beep, beep. And what it's telling you is that we're in menu mode. Mm-hmm. So what is it you're trying to do? And usually the first setting in all the menus is throttle range calibration. And so what you do is now it's already seeing at 100%. You drop it down to 0. You'll hear a set of tones, beep boop, boop beep, and then now you should be recalibrated. Sometimes I've seen it where you have to go back up to the 100% range. So basically that first setup where you have it at 100 was just saying, hey, we're now in the selection thing. When you go down to 0, saying, okay, now that's your bottom range. And then you go back up to 100 and it says, okay, that's your top. And now the calibration's set, and it'll make a couple extra beeps at the end of that, acknowledging that that setup is now complete. Usually what I do at that point is I pull out the battery and I replug it back in with the throttle down at 0. And then it should go through the ESC power up beeping setup. It'll go through acknowledging that the RX is there, that the power cell count is accurate, that it's receiving signal, and then it'll tell you that it's all ready to go with that last little set of beeps. And at that point, you should be ready to go. So now that the throttle calibration, so now when you move the stick up just a little bit, so it starts to actually spin the motor, they should be both spinning at that point. And if you bring it up, they should be throttling up at about the same rate. You should be able to tell that they're at least close. You may not be able to tell exactly. You probably get a tachometer out, or there's like a phone app that you could do a tachometer and measure how fast it's spinning. But generally speaking, you don't really need to do that. Then the other thing you need to check with 2 motor setups or anything more than one is you need to check what direction the motors are going. Typically, if they're all going the same direction, you're all going to have the gyroscopic precession is going to be a big issue for your plane. So the idea of having 2 is so that you can cancel them out and that you don't have an issue. So you want to make sure those motors are in fact spinning the opposite direction. So usually what I do is I take a piece of painter's tape, attach it to the motor shaft because you've removed your propeller, and then you watch it spin. And if you need to, you can put your hand in where the end of the tape is spinning around, and it should be hitting one side, right, your left or your right, and then go to the other side, and it should be hitting the opposite side of your finger. And as long as they're doing that, you're good. If they're hitting the same side, then one of those needs to be switched. And then that's basically pulling the motor wires. Take 2 of the motor wires and flip them and replug them back into the ESC. That's always after you power down. You do that switch, you plug it back in, let the ESCs recalibrate, and then you do not recalibrate, but basically go through their setup, and then you pull the stick up, and then you just check it again. And as long as they're going the opposite directions, you're in good shape. Now, I can't tell you if going outward versus inward, I don't know which is better. But ultimately, you're going to want to fit the correct propeller for the direction that they're spinning. You might want to note if they're spinning inward and put the propeller according to that one on that side. Otherwise, they'll be going the wrong way. And you'll be going backwards instead of forward. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. So once those are all set, so now you've got motors that are the throttle's calibrated, so they're working in tandem and they're working together, I should say. They're spinning the correct direction, which is opposite of each other. Now really the next thing is you want to figure out how you want to set it up in your transmitter. And so essentially what you're going to do is you're going to say this throttle stick input is going to be pushed to the throttle channel, which is usually where motor number 1 is. And then the second motor goes to wherever you can. Ultimately, with most of the modern transmitters, you can really set it up however you want, but this is typically how it's set up. In AETR setups, the throttle's the 3rd channel. So the throttle's the 3rd, and then usually set up either the 5th or 6th channel as your second motor. And then you also slave that throttle stick to the 5th as well. But you can also mix in rudder and say, hey, 10%, I want to change the throttle 10% plus or minus, no matter if I want my stick left or stick right. And what you do is, and there's a couple philosophies, right? So you can have it so that way the outer motor always spins up. So when you move your rudder to, let's say, the rightmost throttle range goes up by whatever percent you want to add. And what that does is it actually will go up to like 120% of the throttle range. So it'll push extra stuff through your motor and through your ESC on the outboard side.
Okay. Can you go past 100%?
You can, technically, a little bit. And what that does is if you're already at the max, running it at that extra speed or the extra current going through the ESC could cause them to overheat. So I like to do it this other way, which is basically having the inboard motor, whatever direction you're turning, actually reduces the throttle by that same percentage. And if you want to have a less percentage difference, and ultimately, let's say you want a 20% difference between the outboard and inboard motors, right? You could also set it up where each of them has a 10% difference. One adds and the other subtracts. And so it's actually it's a smaller difference around that center point of throttle, but you're getting more on the outboard and less on the inboard, let's say, in your turn. Okay. And so, and I've done that, and that actually works pretty good. Because again, you're actually altering the individual throttles less.
Right.
In each motor setup. But I prefer the reduction on the one side than actually adding to the outside.
Well, now there's a caveat to that statement. As I think Yankee was asking my experience with the Sea Duck, which was all of about just a few minutes on the water and about 30 seconds in the air. When I was taxiing on the water with a water plane, doing a subtractive mix only would have made it difficult because I would have had to throttle up and turn with the roll in order to get my motors to do anything because I had a differential thrust setup. But when I was just floating on the water, I could push the sticks, left
just the rudder
or right.
only. Yeah.
And rudder. Yeah. Not roll, but rudder. So for the yaw. And that would, because I had additive thrust mixed in.
Right.
So
that allowed you to do water taxi. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that got you some water taxi capability. So I guess the capability. Oh my God. So I guess that's the reason why I like subtractive is because I've done this where I'm moving the plane around and I accidentally hit the rudder. And what I don't want is one of the propellers to accidentally spin up. If I'm moving the rudder around by accident, right, which shouldn't happen, but I mean, let's say it does. What I don't want to do is have the whole thing, the one side just start up on me and may not be ready for it. By having them being subtractive, no matter what I'm doing, it's not going to accidentally start up. But I can understand you wanting to make sure that, hey, I don't want to start throttling up. I just want to taxi around. I want to have a little bit of rudder authority.
Well, you know what also helps with not accidentally causing your motors to come to life?
What?
A throttle kill switch.
Let's not talk about that. That's really sensible.
I mean, you just flip a switch and it overrides the channels.
Let's see. Did I write that in there? No, I should have though. Yeah, you should always have a rudder kill switch. So, you set it up however you want.
Kill switch.
Throttle kill switch. What did I say? Motor kill switch. Okay.
Yeah, so the throttle kill switch, and I know I've talked about them before because I like them. I don't always set them up, but I just have a switch that is, say, a master arm. And when I have it by default, when you turn the transmitter on and all the switches are in the positions they need to be on, that is the throttle kill. And that sets any motor channels. Most time I only have one, but in the case of Sea Duck, I had two. It would set motor channels. It would override them to a absolute, lowest number. So even if I did additive, the additive would not kick in because the channel is being overridden.
Gotcha. Yep. And that's important. You want to check that and double check it before you start putting that out on the water. You know what I mean? Or put it out on wherever you want. You want to make sure that the throttle kill is in fact killing the throttle even with full rudder deflection. That it's not somehow setting it to 0, but then you add 10. And the one starts setting it up and like, oh no. But yeah, just double check it. That's easy enough to do. Let's see. I mean, that's essentially, that's like the core on how to set it up and philosophies on how to get it set up right. Which way do you want to go? I don't know. I like to have multiple switch, like the switch that's going to allow you to basically turn on and off the differential, because I like differential. I think it's fun to have, and it actually it gives you more options in the air. So, yeah, I think that's about it. Also, if you want more than 2 motors, this essentially applies to as many motors as you want. You can, I've done with the Spruce Goose, I had like the outer 2 motors were Y connected, and they were essentially my left motor, the 2 of them. And the 2 on the outboard right were my right motor, and the center 4 were like the middle throttle. Like, so they were connected to just general throttle. And so the outboard 2 were connected to the rudder plus and minus as adjustments to those.
Mm-hmm.
So that way there's at least some yaw control with all 8 motors. Not that it needed much. I mean, really, the rudder itself had enough control in it. So anyway, well, yeah, so my experience has been this. I've done a couple of these multi-motor setups, and other than the Spruce Goose, they've gone pretty well, and that they've added ground control capacity. Having a couple extra motors really made a big difference in how to get around on the ground. Having more than one motor was nice to have the additional thrust, especially if you're like me. Like sometimes I like to belly land, but I do like to be able to take off from the ground too.
Right.
So as long as your props aren't kind of touching the grass, you can just belly land and like scoot across the grass and take off again.
Nice.
And so having the extra motor thrust actually helps with that. As a matter of fact, that's what I do with the Dragon, the Dollar Tree foam board Dragon. That was a kitty who needed to go. Needed to leave the room. Please leave. Let me leave.
Boom, 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 boom.
You would have thought he was a pro boxer going at that door. Anyway, so yeah. I mean, where do you think, do you get excited about putting extra stuff in there? Or would you rather have the simplicity of just like, I'm going to put a power pod with all the stuff in there, and all I'm doing is just connecting the ESC controller in, and that's it? Or do you like to have like the power split? That's the other thing, is like, you're going to use the more battery. So you want to have a bigger battery to feed all the motors, right? Or would you rather have a million batteries?
I don't know. I've always had sea duck, and I had it in the air for less than a minute.
Fair
so
enough.
I like the idea of it.
Well, yeah. I mean, what would you if you think like, oh, that would be cool?
Yeah.
I know with the Spruce Goose with 8 motors, I had a power distribution board. So I had main battery power going to 2 different distribution boards, one left, one right. And then they split out into 4 different power outages.
Mm-hmm.
And then each ESC was connected individually to, actually they got put together, but they could have gone individually to each channel. I think I that was my next step, was to bring out the big 10 channel receiver and put one motor in each channel, and then reconfigure the transmitter setup.
Yeah, I don't know. I think for now I'm just going to stick with single motors.
Okay. Well,
like if I get back into a multi motor, great. I'm just not looking to jump headfirst into it right now.
Well, how about this? What plane do you think would inspire you to get more than one motor? Like for me, Spitfire, or not Spitfire, the Lightning, P-38 Lightning. When I build that, I'm excited. Matter of fact, I bought a couple motors specifically so that I can put them in that plane.
If I was to have gotten the Sea Duck speed build kit again this past year, but having, that I'd be down to build it again. The problem that I have with the Sea Duck and possibly doing it again is that because of the way that is built and the way it's wired, when you wire it up, like those motors were not retrievable. without gutting that plane.
Yeah. But now you can build power pod setups in there, can't you? I guess it's not built in that way, right?
Yeah, the power pod setups. Do you remember the Corsair's power pod?
Yeah.
It's just like this sort of little insert.
Yeah.
That's about all the Sea Ducks was.
Oh, okay. So it's a short.
And then, these little short things that pushed in. So the power coming to the ESC and the communication line coming to the ESC were running along the wing spar. And your ESC was inside the nacelle. It was just a really tight fit in trying to get stuff pulled out. And maybe I could have done it if, I don't know. It was a tight fit. It was not the most convenient thing to try to get into, and in getting my CPAC motors for Flight Fest out of the Sea Duck, I ripped that Sea Duck to pieces. So
all right, yeah, that was disappointing to see. I understand it.
Yeah, well,
you're like, well, that plane is kind of done. I'm not going to rebuild this way. I might do it some other way, but it's not going to come from this base. So yeah, I got it. All right. Yeah, like I said, just, I don't know if you're a listener and want to tell us what motor, if you had a twin setup, or if you do have a twin motor setup, which model do you plan on putting it in next? Or what one would inspire you to get an extra motor that matches one you have so that you can build it?
I don't know.
Because there's some beautiful planes out there, and most of them don't need it. I mean, look, I still want to build the flying submarine, and that's a 3-motor job. But basically, the outboard motors are twins, right? So they get set up that same way, and we just have a center motor that I don't know really what it's there for, except that the plane's got to be heavy and cumbersome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, that's really the topic. If I don't know, if you have any other topic ideas that you'd like us to cover, we're open to hear the suggestions. Sometimes it fits in like this one, it dovetails in pretty nice. And we're talking about the end of one subject, like gliders. I think if Joe and I start moving into, I'll call it the next type of gliding, which is discus launch gliders, that's certainly something on the plate for us. In the future, but it may be a little bit. We also have balsa on our table, so as we move into that, we'll probably talk about it more.
We keep saying that we're going to do it. It's just neither one of us have. I've got had the opportunity to make that jump yet. I know you've got the balsa.
I've got kits galore, and I don't know what's stopped me, really. There's no good reason. Time is some of it, but I mean, I could clear off my build table here and probably put a pink block of foam that I have in the garage and start working on the foam model and just see how that goes. Which I really should do.
Foam is where your enjoyment's at right now.
Yeah, quick and easy and up in the air is always fun.
I was having that debate with somebody recently, and not really a debate as much as a conversation about why foam over balsa, why not make the switch, why stick with foam.
Well, do you want to talk about that briefly, like what the discussion was about? I know you and I had that almost the same discussion, probably because it was you were having the discussion on the balsa end, I guess, with your friend, right?
Yeah, basically I brought the conversation to you, and I was like, why?
Yeah, why foam, right?
Yeah, but once you and I started talking, like a lot of it came to me as, oh yeah, this is why, I stick with foam. And honestly, a lot of it does come down to cost. Like while there's a lot of time and while there's different techniques and different things you have to do to get the strength that you need out of it, at the end of the day, anytime I doink that Spitfire, it's $3 in foam. Done.
In an evening.
Or
couple, 3.
Yeah, like a month for me.
Well, okay.
But still, I doink the Spitfire, I'm out $3. And if end up doinking a balsa Spitfire, like I could dump any of them, and it's what's going to hurt me more is what it sort of keeps boiling down to right now.
Right. Well, I mean, morale is an important piece to this, right? How often do you keep coming back to the hobby? Well, if your morale doesn't sink too low, pretty often. If if it gets crushed every time you throw a plane into the ground by accident, you're gonna, it's gonna be harder and harder to come to. And obviously, that's kind of why we do what we do with with our Discord group and all that stuff, and making sure we have a community to support everybody, that we can support each other. As we, when we see a picture, somebody's like, "Oh, it didn't land right," and then there's this picture of a crumpled plane. You're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Like, or like for example, last build night, was it last build time or one of the times before? I think it was last time. We had Speeder Bike Dave. He had a model he'd been working on. He just finished up, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to take you out with me, and we're going to do a maiden flight of this thing." And he told us what he was hoping it to fly like. He specifically made a handful of design choices, and he took it out and he flew it, and it matched his design choices, and it flew really well. It wasn't like perfect, but it was like, it's flying and it's doing the things I was hoping. Awesome. Kind of like when I brought the parental wing out the first time. Once I finally got into the air, I'm like, oh my God, it's flying. Yes, it's flying, and it's doing the stuff. All right. So he was really excited. It was really cool that he could bring us on that journey, with him. So we were all like behind him. And even if he crushed it, like in the ground, we're like, ooh, like we had all been behind it. Like, oh, like, but I saw what you're aiming for, and I saw what it did. We're really excited. You should build another one. It was really cool. I'm actually interested to possibly help him make plans or with him, maybe doing a beta test of that model, because it flies unlike other models I've ever seen. So yeah, really cool. So yeah, I guess with that, maybe we should kind of close out the show and say, join us in the Discord and let us know your thoughts and ideas, and we'll see you next time, of course, right?
Yeah.
I'll let you do the outro though. You do it better than I do.
Thank you.
Joe's sitting there sweating, going, "He's going to steal it. He's going to steal it. He's going to take it.
He's stealing it again.
I'm not. No. No, not at all."
Well, guys, as always, I just like doing that.
I know.
As always, we thank you for tuning in and listening. We hope you've enjoyed listening to this conversation as much as Matthew and I have enjoyed having it. Matthew, thank you so much for going over that main topic.
No worries.
Because you've had far more insight into it than I have.
Well, I've built a couple of them. I've failed at a couple of them.
Well, if you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, future topics, anything like that, feel free to reach out to us. Let us know. You can reach us at aviationrcnoob@gmail.com. You can reach Matthew at aviationrcnoob.com, or me, Joe, at aviationrcnoob.com. You can swing by the Facebook page. Oh, update on that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I have been kind of busy with the podcast past couple weeks. So, been doing some stuff on the website, nothing to really ring the bell about yet because it's not all working right now. But on the Facebook, we've not made any huge announcements about it. But I've created a
we're going to be
RC Noob group instead of just the page.
Yeah, we're switching from a page to a group. It allows a little bit more interactivity, and a couple other options. It also allows, I think, Joe and I to actually manage it together.
When you guys put it, like it lets us see when something happens. Like sometimes we used to get notifications and then we weren't. And so like I know one guy, I think it was Jay Clark, like posted something. It was like 3 months before I was like, oh, there's a community tab to this page.
I know.
Oh, look, somebody said something.
Hey, there's more than
a picture.
Yeah, there's like more than 3 tabs. Oh my gosh, this goes on for like 8 or 9 tabs. Look at that. Here's that thing that we were talking about. Look at that. All right, let's do it.
So, if you've been a member of the Facebook page, feel free to go to the Facebook group.
Yep.
We'll go ahead and have updated Facebook link down in the show notes so you guys can find that, or you just search for it. Okay. And you'll see it as a group, not a page.
Sounds
Although
good.
the page still exists. Just, it'll still be there. Just go to the group.
Okay.
Swing by a Discord, join, link in the description, come hang out, meet the guys here, have a chance to, be involved in a community, a safe community, where people just get along and support each other.
Absolutely.
And I think I had one more thing I wanted to say. See, that's what I get for going off script. I
know what you do. Look. Don't forget to, if you want to support us, you can also spread the word. That's one of the things that we could use help with.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, just tell one or two of your friends that you think might enjoy it. Challenge them to listen to a couple episodes and not enjoy it. And maybe people respond to challenges usually pretty well. I know I always do.
I bet you can't listen to 3 episodes.
I bet you can't listen to 1 episode and not find something you enjoyed.
There you go. I do remember the thing I was going to say.
What's
merch?
That? Oh yeah.
I think we're on the Teespring or something.
Yeah, I think we set up some things on Teespring. We'll have a link. Yeah, go check it out.
Whatever it is, it'll be in the description.
Yeah, go check it out. We got I think mugs, shirts, and a hat. I think we might have something else, but yeah, go take a look.
Other things. It's not much, but it's a little something. So if you want a little noob swag, feel free to go have a look around. And I think that's going to be it. Matt, if there's nothing else?
Nope, that's it for me.
All right, guys. We will catch y'all next time.
Aviation Arson out. Bring us in from the top.
Okay.
You botched your own exit.
I did. So bad.
I'm only laughing so hard because you make such a big deal out of it. You're like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, and then I botched it.
No, that's
just because it's like halfway through, I'm like, oh, I should talk about that thing real quick. La 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 ha 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 ha.
All I can think of Nausica, and if it starts tra la 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 la,
yeah, tra la 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 ha 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 ha.
I don't know that one.
Tra la 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 la, tra la 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 la. You don't know that one?
Nope. La 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 la
okay. We're going to do something before we get into this now. Watch. We're going to do this watch together.
So for those fans of Nausica, you'll know that. Now it'll be stuck in your head for about a week. You're welcome.
Your ears can rest now.